Recording in progress.
This special meeting was called for the sole purpose to review and comment on the collective bargaining agreement between the Buffalo City School District and the Buffalo Council of Supervisors and Administrators. Before we begin, I will request Secretary Claus to take a roll call of the directors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Olson?
Here.
Vice Chair Jerzak?
Present.
Secretary Floss is here. Director Sanfilippo is excused. Mayor Brown?
Present.
Present. County Executive Polenkar? Okay. Mr. Chairman, you have quorum.
Great, thank you, Fred. As there is a quorum present, we will begin our meeting. Board packet provided for this meeting includes the staff report and analysis of the contract, along with a copy of the district's submission. Nathan has prepared a presentation to review the labor agreement with us.
Mr. Chairman, you have
Go ahead, Nathan, thank you.
Great, thank you, Fred. As there is a quorum present, we will be.
Okay, we're good now. I just have the YouTube also running in the background.
Okay, we're all set then?
We're
Yeah.
fine. Nils?
I think,
Are we ready for Nathan?
we're ready for
you hear me?
Nathan. Yes. He's just bringing up the presentation.
We have someone else here?
Good, how are you?
Let's wait for this to clear out.
Sitting right there. Are we waiting on Nathan?
We are waiting on Nathan, he's pulling up
Okay,
the
I'm ready.
Can you
presentation.
hear me?
Once this clears out.
Have you lost my video? Hello?
We're still good with you on video. I'm putting the presentation up on the main screen and on YouTube.
It's not working.
You can't see it?
He can't hear us, so we'll just use it from this computer.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, just keep it over here.
Okay, are we ready to go?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Nathan has prepared a presentation to review the labor agreement with us. Nathan, would you please begin?
Thank you. Good afternoon. The Buffalo City School District and the Buffalo Council of Supervisors and Administrators have agreed to a successor collective bargaining agreement. The following is a summary of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority's financial analysis, findings, and recommendations. We'll start with a brief introduction. The current agreement expired back on September 1st, 2020. The successor agreement is effective through June 30th, 2025, and allows for an additional salary increase for fiscal year 25-26. The successor agreement also codifies and extends an MOA related to summer compensation. And this union represents the district's union administrators, unionized administrators. The first thing we'll look at are some of the key contract provisions. A full comparison of all contractual terms, both changed and unchanged, are provided within the written report. The successor agreement does not include retroactive salary increases. Effective on July 1st, 2022, a 10% increase is implemented. 3% increases are implemented in fiscal years 23 through 26, including a 3% increase on July 1st, 2025, after the agreement expires on June 30th, 2025, one day prior. Some additional key contractual provisions here include pay parity between the elementary and the secondary school principals and assistant principals. It brings the elementary folks up to the secondary school pay salaries. There was also the creation of summer school per diem pay. It's currently a full summer stipend. Now it's a per diem, both for full day and half day work. And this more accurately reflects the district's current expanded summer school offerings, which are not necessarily limited to just the elementary school, summer school, and the secondary school, elementary school. There's extended learning programs and some different opportunities available. So they're of differing lengths and times. Another key provision within this successor agreement is a signing bonus. All active BCS members who were hired at January 1st, 2022 receive a one-time bonus equal to 7% of their salary. This is about $7,200 per eligible employee. BFSA estimated that about 241 members would receive this payment, and it is booked to the 21-22 fiscal year, funded exclusively through ARPA grant funds.
Can I ask you a question on this? Is how does this compare with the other signing bonuses that the school district
Sure.
give? It seems that this is substantially higher than the others.
Yeah, we did take a look at the last few, which was the white collar and the blue collar. I'll just touch on it briefly here. It's within the conclusion section.
If you're gonna do it during the conclusions, we can bring it up then. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. It is a little bit higher, and I'll give the full details when we get to that point. Some of the other key provisions here, these involve the savings aspects. First is with health insurance. This is for active employees. There's a difference between active employees hired prior to September 20th, 2027, and those hired after that date. Those folks hired beforehand have an increased contribution from 9 to 10% of the premium equivalent. If you're hired on or after that date, it increases from 15 to 16% of premium.
Is this for both family and individual?
Correct. Yep. Either way, family or single. And then the second healthcare provision involves future retirees. All current BCSA employees are eligible for district-provided health insurance. However, effective on July 1st, 2023, all new administrators hired by the district who are not current district employees, for example, a district teacher, are not eligible for district-funded health insurance when they retire. So if an appointed administrator is a current district employee and is eligible to receive health insurance at retirement, that employee would continue to be eligible for retiree health insurance. It doesn't penalize a person from going from a position within the district up to an administrator and have them lose their health insurance. However, if you do fall into this category where you come from outside the district and you become an administrator, when you do retire, you can still get district-provided health insurance, provided that you provide 100% of the cost, and you are allowed to sell back some of your sick time up to 120 days at a 1-to-1 ratio, and you can utilize any other early retirement incentive monies as well to the cost of that premium equivalent.
Can I ask how they set that up? Is this program like the state's program, where it's an annuity, so you're just buying an annuity to pay for health insurance going forward, or is this something that the district takes, full responsibility for? So I give back my 120 days, whatever that comes out to, I'm gonna be paying X number of dollars every year. Is it split out over that? Or?
Yes, that's how it would essentially work, is you're giving the 120 days back, the cost is calculated, divided by whatever the cost of health insurance is at that time, and then that essentially will provide you with district-sponsored health care through that period. After that, you would pay 100%.
So it's not, the state's program is somewhat different than that. You can have up to 200 days, well, they're moving it now to about 250 days. And then at that point, it's paying a certain portion every year for the rest of your life, and you pick up the differential every year through
Yeah,
your
that would
life.
be
So
different.
you're saying that it's just X number of years, and when you run out of money, you run out of money.
That's right.
Okay. And everyone knows that?
That's the way that we've explained it.
Okay. Thank you.
So there's a couple tables up on the screen. This shows the gross savings, gross costs, net costs, both on all funds and general funds. There is a 2021 impact here, it's exclusively within the grants fund, which shows only on the slide on the bottom there with all funds. That's the signing bonus. I mentioned it was covered through ARPA funding. It's about $2 million. And then I have it separated here what the impact would be on 22-23, the current fiscal year, the impact on the 23 through 26 financial plan, and then on the far right side of the tables are the total cost. So the total cost is going to be the same for the general fund, and on the all funds, it'll also include that 21-22 impact. The 22-23 net cost is estimated at $3.7 million general fund, $5 million all funds. The impact on the financial plan is $21.2 million general fund, $27.9 all funds, and then the cumulative impact, like I said, with that 21-22 impact is $29.1 million all funds, and then the same impact for general fund as it is on the financial plan. So that's the funding, and we'll look at the district's provided funding sources here. Similar to what was seen at the last meeting for the PECTA labor contract, a schedule was provided by the district. This is an outline providing alternatives available to the district, but not necessarily planned budgetary reallocations. These, like I said, these were previously provided and include, the first one here is the Special Projects Fund, primarily through ARPA funding. The signing bonus is funded through ARPA ESSER grants in 21-22. The second part of that is the existing grant funding mechanism that has been in place to fund many of these positions, along with ARPA funding as well in the current and out years of the contract. So there's grant funding available. There's also what has been built within the financial plan. The district listed about just under $2.7 million in the 4 years combined, that you could safely say that the budget and the financial plan included those dollar amounts, and that they're a little bit of a cushion based on the hypothetical high that it could be versus what it might actually be. And when we ran the numbers and took a look at that number, it seemed pretty reasonable to say that was built in within the plan. The second part of that is the financial plan also includes this reserve contingency to settle labor contracts, and each financial plan financial year includes this contingency to settle the contracts. These set-aside funds are identified as available to fund this successor agreement. The adopted budget includes $26.2 million. The overall within the financial plan is $131.4 million. This contract by itself would utilize an estimated $20.9 of contingency funding. And then after considering both the PECTA contract and this contract, the remaining contingency funds, backing those dollar amounts out, is about $101.3 million. So that concludes the review of the key provisions and the funding sources, financing the funding sources.
Go to the next slide,
Questions for
please.
Nathan?
I got a couple comments there, Chair Olson. So just to kind of summarize with our findings and our recommendations on this review, again, the total cost of the contract over the financial plan is estimated at $29.1 million, with 21.2 of that representing the estimated increased expenditures in the general fund. The signing bonus is expected to be a 2022 expense, booked back to 2022. So that's why there's a little bit of a difference between the total cost and what's going to actually impact the financial plan. The district demonstrated that the costs for this contract were provided in the current financial plan. As a reminder, that financial plan was balanced using $90.3 million of fund balance to both balance the plan as well as to fund operations. A modified plan is not required. We do repeat our recommendation made in connection with the review of the PCTEA agreement last month, which is to recommend that the financial plan be revised to reflect the new labor costs for these two labor contracts, and to make the revised plan publicly available to provide full transparency to any interested party. Next slide, please, Nathan. There are certain concessions, as Nathan discussed, that are included in this contract. One is it's a small increase for healthcare contributions by a percentage depending on date of hire, but it is a percentage regardless. More important is the elimination of health insurance for any new administrator hired after July 1st, 2023. However, there is protection within this contract, so any employee who, for example, is currently a teacher, they're entitled to health insurance through that particular union agreement. They're protected when they move into the administrator group as well, so they don't lose that benefit. Moving forward, particularly depending on how the teacher contract is negotiated, it could have a significant impact on the OPEB liability moving forward. Next slide, Nathan. We did compare key terms of this contract to the recently settled contracts with Local 264, which is blue collar, and PCTEA, which is white collar. These were settled both within this last year, October 21 and June 22 respectively, just to kind of gauge comparability to help you with your review. So with respect to that, the annual percentage increases, they're structured differently among these three agreements, but collectively they're reasonable compared to the other two union agreements. With respect to the signing bonuses, BCSA does receive a higher bonus, both in terms of dollars as well as percentage points. The bonus is a flat 7%, which is equal to $7,205 based on the average BCSA salary. This is compared to PCTEA, or white collar, who received $1,000 flat, which was equal to less than 1% of their average salary. And Local 264, they received a range between, depending on years of service, between $1,000 and $3,000. So the range on average salary for that was 2.2% to 6.6%, depending on years of service.
I guess this is where I want to come back to
Yeah.
that is, I mean, I understand in any contract negotiations that everybody is attempting to get the best deal for each of their members, and I want to say that I think you did a great job on using ARPA funds to stop costs going out in the future. I guess from a control board standpoint, and I think from a community standpoint though, the idea of looking at signing bonuses that seem to be given out to high-income individuals where low-income individuals like school aides and bus aides and those where they're not even doing half as well leads to at least some concern of a perception of fairness. And I think it's important to try, while we can't compare contracts and negotiations that way, it does seem to me that those on the bottom seem to, at least looking at all of these, seem to not be receiving the same kind of fairness that we might want to expect. I mean, and I understand how hard that is to do in a negotiation settlement where we're negotiating different contracts. But I guess I'd like to hear what your ideas are, Jeff. Or,
If you don't mind.
or whatever, either of you is fine.
Yeah, first, I mean, you have to understand with PECTA, it would have been more appropriate to go back and look at the prior agreement that we reached with PECTA, which was an agreement where they were out for about 4 or 5 years. And if you look at the bonus structure there, it probably would have been much more similar to what you would have seen with the BCSA, where you had, now the most recent time, the reason that PECTA got $1,000, typically we wouldn't have even done a signing bonus there. But you have to, because they were in contract, meaning they've had raises for 8 of the 8 last years. Because we're remaining in contract, we gave them a $1,000 bonus in essence because of what a lot of their membership did during the COVID years. Now with the BCSA contract is different. They were out of contract for 2 years. Okay, we didn't do retroactivity with them. This would, in essence, have, our signing bonuses, some ways are looked at a way of recuperating that retroactivity without actually having to go back and calculate it. which is why in this case, we did 7%, which if you look at our contract, 19% over a 5-6 year period, it's 3.5% a year. So that was our way of restoring that retroactivity in this case. So it's not an apples to apples comparison to look at PECTA, who was in contract, who did not have an expired contract, who have received raises for 8 of the last 8 years, and compare them to what the BCSA is getting. Okay, so that I want to absolutely make clear for the record, because I don't think, you know, you have to look at those sort of situations differently, you know, as different circumstances. I mean, and hopefully, you know, the other contract you'll be seeing in a couple weeks is very similar, you know, with our cook managers, where they've had contracts on contract for the last 3 of their contracts just about. And so they're going to have a much smaller signing bonus because they're getting raises right on time, whereas in BCSA's case, primarily because their contract expired and we started negotiating right when COVID hit and things kind of slowed down. But I think you'll see the district trying to stay in contract more, and I think these signing bonuses to come more in alignment with each other, where they would not be, you know, there won't be that kind of disparity that you've pointed out on paper.
Right, and I think that that's important, one, to get out to people, but two, if I remember the bus aides and others, that they were out for a year or two and that their signing bonuses were a lot less than that. And I mean, and 3.5, and I understand, I think the union did a good job of coming to terms with you at this point, simply because we don't know what inflation's going to be in the future. So there's an argument to be made that, you know, we need to have higher rates, and the 3% does seem to be the average, both in the private and public sector over the last few years. So I have no problem with the 3%. But going backwards, where everyone else was getting 2% raises and having the top individuals getting 3% raises on the signing bonus. And I'm not arguing, because, I mean, you're negotiating a contract and there are different things people are giving up. So people need to realize these aren't apples to apple comparisons. But I guess I would push then that when we do get down to those at the bottom end of this, that we are a little bit more cognizant of making sure that when we get these across the board kinds of dollars, that there are a few more dollars in there for them as we try to be a little bit more fair about this. And I understand that's not what negotiations is all about, and that's not really your job, but it does seem, as the control board and maybe the school board, it is our job to try to make some of those comparisons. And that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, but I even look at our transportation aides, who we did, I think it was last summer. And maybe they did miss a year because of COVID, and so we kind of shut things down, but we actually offered them more money than they put on the table, because we wanted to get to that $15 an hour threshold. You know, that ended up being 25% of an increase, you know, if you look at it that way. You know, you look at that on paper, you're going to say, wow, you just gave a lot more to the transportation aides than you gave to your BCSA. That's not the case in reality, because we know they're hourly workers, they don't get benefits. But we often, you know, we have been very fair, I think, in terms of recognizing the market with some of our lower paid employees, our hourly employees, and treating them differently than we might, you know, with some other units, at least on a percentage basis. You know, you can look at our teacher aides and assistants contract from last year. What we did with our teacher assistants gave them 25-30% in increases from where they previously were. So you really do have to look at these contracts on a case-by-case basis, and they're not apples-to-apples comparisons. And the district is not treating some groups less than some of its other groups.
I think
Okay?
that's an important statement to make in all of this.
And on the health insurance point, you know, I get the point on premium contributions, but go look at our teacher aide contract, our teacher assistant contract from last year. We didn't get a percentage from them because we realized that our teacher aides and assistants, the benefit of health insurance to them is as valuable to them as the money that they make. And so they were contributing for the first time. They were paying $250, I think, a year for a single plan, $400 a year for a family plan or something, and it
Right.
eased in over the course of the contract. But you're not gonna come back and say, well, Nate, district, you gotta be 20% equal with your teacher aides and assistants. I'd say, no, that doesn't make any sense. It's not an apples to apples comparison. And so, you know, when you're collective bargaining, when you're looking at 11 different bargaining units, you have to understand that all of them are a little bit different in their own way. You know, so
Yeah, no,
I
that's
take your,
fine.
I take the critique, but I wanna point that out for the record because it's not that simplistic.
And I get all of that.
Secretary Claus, may I add something?
Yes.
Just because I had taken this into consideration, all the points that you just made, Mr. Kuzma, and when I make the comments about the salary itself increases being reasonable, that's taken outside of context of any bonuses. So I just look at the salary increases. So BCSA for a 3-year period for the 2 zeros and the one that was re-implemented is 10%. I can compare that to the white collar for the exact same time period of 9.75%. So on a salary to salary basis, it's reasonable. When I start looking at the bonuses pulled out separately, which would be appropriate under the circumstances, when I say, okay, the salary increases are reasonable, that's when we saw the outlying between the other two unions. Blues also were out of contract from 2013 to 2021, so there was a significant amount of time that they were out of contract. So but I do agree, contract by contract, everything is different, negotiations vary among unions, but I do stand behind our recommendation that signing bonuses be consistently negotiated among unions.
Are there any additional comments for the record or questions for any of the representatives of the district?
The final slide, or the final comment for the record is our final recommendation that because, you know, particularly BCSA members are more the highly compensated members, newer BCSA members contribute 16% towards health insurance premium equivalent costs. That's compared to 20% for both newer white collar and newer blue collar employees. And we recommend that BCSA members contribute at least the same percentage of that of the other unions.
And if I can just make one last comment on health insurance, and this is more as an economist than anything else, is that the importance of having family and individual coverage and having a higher percentage rate on family coverage than individual coverage, although I know the two are different, so you're gonna pay more for family coverage, is probably important because it would allow us then to shift costs more appropriately over time. So it's been an objection I've made at every, not just the school contracts, but almost every contract that's come here, that we're not sort of in compliance with other public sector unions or other private sector ways of doing health insurance. And that may very well, since we're self-insured, that may very well screw up how much money we're coming out the other end. I haven't done the full analysis of figuring out how much that might be, but we may be able to save money that could be going back into all of these contracts over time if we sat down and did that. I'm more than happy to sit down and work with you on that, but it's just a consistent thing that we've seen on these health insurance agreements. And again, I understand how hard it is to negotiate and change things over time, particularly with COVID and everything else. But in the future, hopefully we can consider that. So thanks.
Anything else from any of the directors?
I have a question.
Sure.
Jim. I gather from the written material and from the report, it's perfectly clear that that the new CBA erases, how should I put it, a differential, a prejudice differential between elementary and secondary level assignments for administrators and supervisors. So that is an historical first, correct, Nathan?
The parity for, go ahead.
If you don't mind, yeah, that is a historical first. To answer your
All right. and and that's a good thing. And then here's the question: are there any other pockets or employment categories where there still remains a different compensation parameter for an elementary and a secondary level assignment? Any other pockets that look like the one that's just been taken care of?
I don't believe so.
Not that I'm aware
It would
of.
have to be within teachers, and it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I think you gotta tell her you didn't hear it.
The audio was not so good, so no, there are no others.
Correct. There's no others.
Okay, so we have erased the single instance of non-parity between elementary and secondary assignments.
Correct.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the report as previously provided to you and discussed today for distribution to the district officials?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it, okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that motion is carried, and this concludes this meeting of the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, by acclamation. Thank you, everybody.
Recording stopped.